In the opening scene of the movie, we see David Norris, the main antagonist of the movie, having a flashback when he was running for the election of the senator in the state of New York. He's running his campaign by going door to door in the community, and he's having a 10-point lead against his opponent, and the media is also loving him. Then an article is printed in the New York Post which says, "David Norris's behind exposed college reunion prank caught on camera." Here we see a mysterious guy receiving a call and telling the person on the call that he is working on it. After the New York Post story, the whole election campaign of David goes sideways. People and media start criticizing him for his immaturity, which he watches on TV. Four mysterious men are walking on the roof of a building, and one of them is the same guy who previously was seen receiving that call. David is sitting in his apartment when his friend and the head of this campaign, Charlie, comes into the room and takes him to the campaign office, where they hear the results of the election which he is losing. David goes to the restroom where he is practicing for his speech which he is going to give after losing the election. He suddenly hears the sound of a metal piece falling on the ground and the whispering of a girl in one of the restrooms. He calls her out and she comes out of the restroom, and he tells her that this is the men's restroom, to which she apologizes for eavesdropping and tells David that she is trying to hide from security as she has crashed a wedding. She recognizes him and consoles him for losing the election. They keep on talking and all of a sudden, they instinctively kiss each other. Charlie arrives in the restroom while they were kissing and gets surprised. The girl immediately leaves. David goes to the podium for his speech and tries to deliver the pre-written speech where he was supposed to tell people that he will get back again. But then suddenly he starts telling people that this whole thing is a facade, and he has been behaving hypocritically during the election campaign just to win the election. In the next scene, one of the four mysterious men meet in a park, and one tells the other that David has to spill his coffee maximum by 7:05 a.m. at the latest, which the other guy acknowledges, and the first guy leaves. David wakes up in his apartment and gets ready to go to his office, as he has joined Charlie's venture capital firm after losing the election. He leaves his apartment with a cup of coffee in his hand. The mysterious guy who is snoozing suddenly wakes up and takes out a diary and looks into it and panics seeing David taking the bus. He starts running after the bus. In the bus, David meets the same girl he had met in the restroom and sits alongside her. They start chatting while the mysterious guy keeps running after the bus but is unable to catch it. He looks at his watch and points with his finger to the bus, and David spills coffee onto the girl. The guy is hit by a cab in the meanwhile, but is not injured. He again looks into his diary where strange moving lines are appearing. He gets up but the bus has left. David formally gets introduced to the girl here whose name is Elise. She gives him her cell phone number on a visiting card and gets off the bus at her station. David reaches his office and greets the receptionist and keeps on going to Charlie's office, not noticing that everyone in the office is in a frozen state. He reaches Charlie's office and finds him in a frozen state, and some men are scanning his head, who get surprised seeing him enter the room. One of them asks to grab him, but he starts running. The men run after him to catch him and finally grab him and anesthetize him. David wakes up in a big hall, and he hears the same men chattering about him. They are talking about resetting him, but another guy arrives and tells them that they cannot reset him. David doesn't understand anything what's happening. Then one of the men introduces himself as Richardson and tells him that they are the members of the Adjustment Bureau, who make sure that everything happens according to the plan. He also tells him that he can read his mind, and he was not supposed to see them. Richardson tells him that his path was supposed to be adjusted today morning, as he was to spill his coffee and go back to his apartment to change his clothes, and was not supposed to meet Elise at all. David asks him why he can't be together with her, and Richardson replies that the plan says so. He also threatens David that if he reveals the existence of the Adjustment Bureau to anyone intentionally or unintentionally, they will lobotomize him and his life will be finished. He also tells David not to try to meet Elise again. He takes out the visiting card on which her cell number was written from his wallet and burns it. After that, Richardson's men grab David and throw him through a door, and he finds himself back to his office. As he is still lying on the floor, Charlie enters the office, and David asks him if he is fine, to which Charlie replies that he is absolutely fine. Everybody in office is back to normal. The scene shifts to a restaurant where David is sitting at the bar and trying to work out the cell number of Elise, of which he remembers first 6 digits only. The member of the Adjustment Bureau comes to meet him. He introduces himself as Harry Mitchell. He tells him that even if he somehow figures out the number of Elise, the Bureau will make sure that he doesn't meet her. David confronts him about poking into people's minds, and Harry tells him they only make some tiny changes in the thinking pattern of the people, and that even requires an authorization from the chairman of the Bureau. Harry tells him that they cannot talk here, so he asks David to meet him at 4 p.m. boat, and he will answer his questions whatever he can. David then meets Harry on the boat and tells him the Bureau's personnel are meant to run the world, according to the plan given by the chairman. David asks him if they are angels, and Harry tells him that they are called by this name as well. He also tells David that their powers to read the minds of human beings are blocked by water. That's a control the chairman has set for them. David asks him as to why they don't want him to be with Elise, which Harry doesn't know much about. 3 years pass by and one day, David is riding a bus when he spots Elise walking on the side of the road. He immediately gets off the bus and meets her. She confronts him about the fact that her never contacted her in last 3 years, despite the fact that she gave him her number. He asks her to come with him to a restaurant, and he will explain why he couldn't contact her. In the meantime, an officer of the Adjustment Bureau rushes to Richardson telling him that David is off plan again. Richardson reaches the restaurant with his assistant where David and Elise are sitting. Elise tells David that she is a contemporary ballet dancer and works in a company called Cedar Lake. Richardson and his team start using different tricks to separate David and Elise, like changing the rehearsal place for Elise and calling Charlie to the restaurant. Charlie asks David to come with him as there is a crowd of voters waiting for him as he is running for the elections again. Elise tells David to go for now and come later on to one of her dance performances. David leaves with Charlie after promising Elise that he will come to her performance. David goes and delivers a speech to the crowd, and as he is planning to go and meet Elise, he spots Richardson in a building, and he understands what's going on. David tries to reach Elise through his mobile phone, but Richardson kills his mobile phone, as well as the landline phones in the area. Finally, Richardson confronts David and tries to convince him to stay away from Elise. David asks him why he can't be with her, to which Richardson has no answer, except that the plan says so. David hires a cab to outrun Richardson, who is using doors to follow and stop David from meeting Elise. But David finally reaches Elise's studio, and Richardson catches up to him in the studio. He gets a call from his senior officer Donaldson. Richardson reaches the office of the Bureau and meets his boss Donaldson, who explains to him that it's not his fault. Actually, David and Elise are drawn to each other because they were meant to be together in a previous version of the plan, until the plan changed in 2005, and now she is supposed to be together with Adrian instead of David. And now the remnants of the previous plan keep pushing them together, but they need to be kept apart. Richardson tells Harry about this as well, who is surprised as to how the plan can change. Donaldson brings in Thompson to do the job, who is famous in the Bureau as the Hammer, as he does his job with utmost cruelty. David and Elise walk together after the dance performance where they tell each other about their past, and, in the end, they share a kiss, and they go to David's place where they get intimate. Thompson watches them both while they are asleep. Next morning, Elise wakes up as her phone is ringing. Her ex-boyfriend Adrian is calling her, with whom she broke up 3 months back. David brings her coffee, and she tells him that it was her ex with whom she had broken up 3 months back. And today he has called her 4 times, and David figures out that it's the Bureau's people who are doing this. David and Elise then leave to attend The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and, when the show is finished, one of the crew members leads him through a door, and David finds himself in the same hall where he met the Bureau members for the first time. Here Thompson meets David and tells him the reason why he can't be together with Elise. He tells him that they are planning for him to win not only the next 4 Senate elections, but the presidential election as well in the future, and if he stays with Elise, he won't be able to achieve this. But David doesn't listen to him, and Thompson lets him go. David goes to the place where Elise is doing her rehearsal and watches her. Thompson reaches there as well and tells David that Elise is about to become the country's most popular choreographer, and if they stay together, this will ruin her career as well. Before leaving, Thompson makes Elise fall during a dance move which causes a sprain in her ankle. David rushes her to the hospital where she undergoes medical exam. Thompson again meets David and tells him that all this is his fault, and if he still insists on staying together with Elise, he will be responsible for ruining his career as well as hers. This makes David think about Elise's passion for dancing, and he decides to end their relationship. He meets Ellis for the last time and then leaves the hospital, which is devastating for Elise. Richardson meets Harry, who is really sad about the separation of David and Elise, and tries to console him that they have no option other than following the plan, which Harry doesn't seem to be convinced about. 11 months pass by, and David is running for the Senate elections again and has a 16-point lead against his opponent. Charlie shows him a newspaper article where the news of Elise's marriage to Adrian is printed, who has now become a very popular choreographer of the country, and this makes David even more sad. Harry also reads the news of Elise's marriage and leaves a message for David to meet him during a rainfall to avoid being detected by the bureau. Harry meets David and tells him that being a politician is not worth leaving Elise, and David asks him why he is helping him. Harry tells him that it was he who forced the deaths of his father and brother, who were very nice as per the instructions of the bureau. David asks Harry as to where Elise is getting married, and preempting David's plan, Harry tries to convince him not to do anything foolish, as Thompson will not let him be near her ever. David asks Harry to teach him about moving through the doors like the people of the bureau, so that he can outrun them to reach Elise, which Harry agrees to. Both of them go to the city water reservoir to avoid being detected by the bureau team. Harry starts teaching David about moving through the doors and tells him to always turn the doorknob clockwise, and Harry asks him what happens if he turns it the other way, to which Harry replies that it's only for the bureau people. Harry brings the catalogs containing the details of all the doors of the city, teaching David how to use these doors to reach the court before being apprehended by the bureau team. He learns about the doors all night, and next morning, when Elise is getting married, he is planning to reach the courtroom to meet Elise and stop her from getting married. Before leaving, Harry gives him his hat, without which he cannot use these doors. David makes a run for the courtroom, and as soon as he uses the first door, a bureau team member informs Thompson about it, and he and his team starts running after David to stop him from meeting Elise. Finally, David reaches the courtroom and meets Elise, who is in the restroom and is surprised to see David. David tries to convince her not to marry Adrian, but Elise confronts him about leaving her in the hospital. David tries to convince her, but in the meantime a bureau member reaches there, whom David punches, and he drops on the floor unconscious. David reveals the bureau to Elise, and as he does so, Thompson calls for an intervention team for lobotomizing David. The bureau member sends a request to the chairman's office for resetting David. David asks Elise to come with him and takes her out through another door of the restroom, which opens up in a stadium, and from there he opens another door which opens up in downtown Manhattan. This surprises Elise, as she is unable to understand what's happening. Thompson and his team also keep following them to catch them. From downtown Manhattan, David and Elise pass through another door which opens up onto the island of Statue of Liberty. Here Elise gets really shocked, and she asks David as to what's happening. David tells her about the bureau, which she is unable to fathom. Here David decides to meet the chairman himself by turning the doorknob anti-clockwise. He asks Elise if she will come with him, and, after a little hesitation, she agrees to come with him. They turn the doorknob anti-clockwise and find themselves in the office of the bureau, where they are apprehended by the bureau officers. They make a run to reach the chairman's office, and Thompson and his team also come after them. In the meantime, Donaldson tells Harry that he has been summoned by the chairman's office. After crossing a door, David and Elise reach the rooftop, where they are stopped by the intervention team. As the team approaches them, they go for a final goodbye kiss, and as they are kissing each other, the team vanishes suddenly, and then Thompson comes there and asks David if he really thought that he would be able to reach the chairman. But as he is talking to David, Harry comes there with a message for Thompson from the chairman's office, which Thompson reads and leaves. David asks Harry if the message is about them, to which Harry replies yes. Harry then tells David and Elise that their love and passion for each other has inspired the chairman, so he has rewritten the plan in which both of them can stay together. David asks Harry now what, and Harry takes his hat back from David and asks them to take the stairs and leaves, and the movie ends here.